vehicle's database directly in the US, for example. So it's really good identity. One of the issues that comes up is, what if somebody loses their key, or what if somebody sells it, right? Like, I'll just sell my identity for $500. I'm so desperate. And then there's a marketplace of identities. One of the things that we're working to address that is real liveness, right? So for example, if you are doing a larger transaction, or you're doing some sort of larger authorization, or one that requires it, it can basically push a transaction online that tells you, okay, this is starting a liveness check, and do that again, essentially verifying a user. So that's one of the things that WorldCoin ran into. Wow, there's a whole huge line of people lining up to get their eyeballs scanned for $50. But wait, they were all paid $5. Some guy's pocketing $45, and he owns all of their private keys, right? In the case of Proton Identity. And I've seen this, right? I saw an identity provider doing blockchain identities, and in their DMs, a hidden comment, hey, I can buy, this provider's stolen identities, right? That's not going to fly in the Proton identity world, and for the most part hasn't, because we've also Metallicus as a core developer, and we're one of first people dog fooding our own tech, is monitoring, and built out our own compliance program around that. So unlike other DeFi protocols, there might be North Korea hacker laundered money, there might be all types of crazy things floating through Uniswap, floating through Maker, not in our ecosystem, right? Because we've really perfected that. So I guess that's just kind of the answer about the identities.
Let's go to, I think, James. Sorry, you had your hands up for a while, and then CC.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, Marshall, if there's two parts to this. If you could touch kind of on the patents you have for the process of implementing on-chain DID, and then also kind of a bit more around your involvement, I guess, working with the government, and you put up a bill in the past, and kind of that story and that journey. I think that would be interesting for the audience to hear.
Thanks, James. Yeah, the patent, which you can search online, is still in patent pending state. And patents take a long time to get, but I feel very good about the one that James mentioned. And it's a digital identity patent. Essentially, it's using a lot of the kind of recommended published, and implement a working proof of concept and a method for which you could attest identity on chain without storing the PII, the personally identifying information, on the chain. So your social security number is not like published in the blockchain, even if it was encrypted or anything. It's just a method for creating a pointer to where that information can be looked up and queried, which is what you do anyways with like a standard identity API. But this vision is basically to create kind of like an identity marketplace while simultaneously streamlining the process, because everybody in crypto especially knows how extremely painful it is from platform to platform, going as far as writing on a piece of paper, the date or something crazy like that. So streamlining that tech and also making it easier. And that's a patent that I co-authored in 2020. And yeah, I'm excited about that, because I think, over the past couple of years, people have said, oh, well, that's never going to happen. You're just going to do whatever you want in any blockchain whenever. It's all going to be identityless. And if you're exchanging value, there's some sort of currency exchanging. You do need to have, in most countries, anti-money laundering controls and things like that. It's just that it was early on. So, some of the early crypto platforms were just kind of, see what happens, put it out there and see what happens. And now we're seeing in the news all the consequence of, the typical startup vision, which is like, well, make a bunch of mistakes and ask for forgiveness later. You can't really do that when it comes to financial services, because you have things like terrorism and money laundering, all these things. So there's a really high bar and responsibility for regulated financial services. Ultimately, as we discover crypto's money, you're going to see that type of stuff happening. The other day, after Hex had its whole explosion, SEC and all of that, Uniswap delisted Hex, and people are like, can they do that? Of course they can do that. And what's going to happen next is going to be identity on chain, because you can't be trading in the liquidity pool of North Korea, right? And so like that's that's what's going to happen. So that's inevitable, and that's what we've been kind of piloting. And it wasn't as sexy, a few years ago. It's starting to become sexier. People got confused about, the governance proposal and inflation of coins, or, how that works. And now, as there are better tools and identity and things like that, we can even have, as Alice suggested, one person, one vote. And we haven't had that in Ethereum and other places before. But I think it'll get more and more popular.
Just because before CC gets in, and Marshall, I don't want to take away from CC's time, just quick. XRP and XPR, clearly confusing. Easily a keyboard stroke away from a mistake. Do you ever see XPR, the symbol or acronym, changing?
Yeah, is it going to change?
So a lot of exchanges don't really kind of accept ticker changes, but that's something we could put up as a proposal. Again, that was something that when we first started it, there aren't a lot of ticker options, and Proton, we wanted to conform to the ISO standard, and we're Proton, and so we went with it. Ultimately, it's worked. I don't think anybody is confused, like, oh, but I have certainly heard of people saying, oh, I found this because of that. That's cool.
Well, I definitely found it because I've retweeted something that in the past I thought was XRP.
Maybe Bullish did. I don't want to backstab Bullish here, but Bullish also said a bunch of folks, misspelled it. Bunch of folks misspelled.
Welcome in, as Bully Bear would say.
All right, CC.
What's going on, everyone? Marshall, pleasure. Quick question. I know you guys are able to handle 4,000 transactions per second, while XRP is only able to handle 1,500 transactions per second.
I see where you're coming from, CC.
Main question to you is, why would somebody or institution choose XPR over XRP when you guys have a finality of 3 minutes?
So the current finality is, we've set it 180 seconds, which is like a very high threshold if you look on Proton Scan. This is the DPoS version that runs today. Technically, the block times are a half second, or exactly 1 second, sorry. And after one block on Proton, it's pretty much generally confirmed. Sometimes you'll see something that says potentially forked, and that means it's not really sure. You really do want to wait for it to confirm. But for the most part, it's not like Bitcoin where double spending is that easy, where you apply a higher fee and it just goes through. Something also to note, we are about to launch the A-Chain, which is the virtualized version of Proton on Metal blockchain WASM, and that does have finality of 0.5 seconds.
I just want to say to whoever, CC, I think he asked, transactions in general, TPS, are hardly comparable, because I don't know what is considered a transaction on one chain is not considered on another chain, and transactions are, it's different. There are different transactions and involved, so it's very, very hard sometimes to compare.
That's very true. Depending on the information that's being transacted back and forth between.
Yeah, sometimes messaging is even considered a transaction, which is not on the.
My question would be, Marshall, who are acting as the validators, right, to get this quick consensus?
So this is one of the really cool things about Proton. If you go to protonscan.io, you'll see all the block producers, and because we have KYB and human readable names, and we have the Proton Consortium DAO, we verified who all these businesses are and people are. And you can see which country they're coming from. You can link to their website. You can message them. It's a totally kind of different experience than most blockchain scenarios where it's difficult to reach a validator or a miner or something like that. Our system on Proton is really transparent in that sense that, it's actually kind of a prerequisite to joining the network through the DAO, that you're going to disclose who you are and where you are, and you're not going to cause problems for the network, which is very different than, other systems like Bitcoin, or even Metal blockchain is designed that way to be more kind of like Bitcoin, where anyone can join. The Proton network is more of a kind of a decentralized vision of miners that are more involved typically. So
Marshall, so the community seems to be getting caught up on Proton. What about the metal nodes, and what do we have? Like there's 100 metal nodes right now from community members. just regular
Yeah,
people?
it's growing so fast. It's really awesome. You know, the vision of Metal is, you know, and what we built in our ecosystem is a layer 1 and a layer 0 blockchain. Proton's the kind of like the
Okay. Your question, Marshall.
sorry, Vet. Sorry,
No,
man.
yeah, I know. You need to do, yeah, the marketing is in you. That's no problem. That's right. No, go ahead.
Are these nodes being paid to operate? Because I see you compared them to miners.
Yeah, so they receive a portion of the block rewards to essentially to mine the metal into production. So as they're validating blocks in the metal blockchain, they're earning those rewards. It's just like Bitcoin or any. Well, I guess XRP doesn't really have that notion, but it's similar to like Bitcoin or Ethereum. There's Block or Dogecoin. You know, the miners are essentially earning these rewards. It's forked off the Avalanche code base. So if you're familiar with AVAX, it's identical, except for, you know, our vision with it and why did we fork off of AVAX instead of making a subchain. There were core changes that we wanted to make, and some of those are like the core subchains, and creating a network that, you know, AVAX was really focused around DeFi initially, and now is more focused into gaming. We're focused into banking and payments and DeFi. And one of the problems we saw with DeFi was the EVM, right? The MEV and there was even jokes like where people called it Mevalanche and things like that. But I just don't think that that's a good economy. It's not something that financial services and banks want to deal with, right? Or anything like that, that they could have somebody like squatting on their chain and crunch, you know, prioritizing these transactions. So with building the A chain WASM, we just add another core chain is works differently with resources, with RAM and CPU and net versus just one token for gas, right? And so it's just a little more energy, it's just more resource efficient, and you can do a lot very fast. So the combination of combining, you know, what was started with EOS and Avalanche into Metal and Proton, it's just a fine tuning of it. Another thing
now
too,
layer
and
3's coming in, right, Marshall?
sorry,
And now layer 3's coming out with
Bitcoin,
you
Oh,
guys,
bullish.
Well,
right.
yeah, you know, like run me through. You know, you said you have this new subnet coming out soon. Who's going to be the validation on that? Are you going to be running the validators for that when it goes live?
so all the validators on Proton, you know, we're all connected through like Telegram and so forth, and, you know, social media. When it's ready to demo, the BPs on Proton are going to be jumping in there. Also, you'll have non BPs coming in as well, but they're all made aware of it, that it exists. So
What does
it's
BP
something.
mean?
Block producer.
Oh,
It's
okay.
like
Oh,
miner.
BP. Oh, sorry,
validator.
BP. Yeah. Okay. Something for you, Marshall. So I'm truly gonna measure actually you and the community on what you're gonna say. What are the biggest critiques, you know, you would say, you know, is for XPR, and, you know, things that you think, you know, need some work, some things to do, and, you know, just be very reflective of, you know, the whole chain and whole community. And don't give me the elevator pitch you give to any VCs you're involved in. Just give me a straightway honest, hey, this is stuff that we need to work on to make it better.
Yeah. So, and one thing I want to say before this, getting into that, is just that everybody who's here should go to WebAuth.com and create an account and try it, because that's like the best example of kind of showcasing like what, before we critique it, like what is it, right? What does it do? So we can understand, like, you know, where it can improve, where it's doing well and where it's not doing well. And so, you know, where I think it can do, you know, Proton can really improve is, one, more activity in the governance. And a lot of people here on the space have become really active in that, and they're on Twitter and they're on X, you know, here on X, pushing people to it sounds like they're on ecstasy, but they're here on x.com, you know, pushing people to use the governance dashboard and vote for their proposals and make proposals. So the more people do that, the more decentralized it gets, the more community input there is. We have a marketing war chest that was part of the proposal in January, and there's only been like one proposal that's gone through for that. So I want to see more around that. For people that are skeptics, like, make the proposal of, I want to limit it at 40 billion. I don't like XLM at 50 billion. I don't like XRP at 100 billion. Well, then you could do something about it, right? Or you could just be like, oh, this sucks. I don't want to be involved. But that's the difference, is that it's very early, and it isn't one centralized corporation that just kind of controls everyone. Everyone deals with it. We've passed it off to the community, and we created it. But at this point, it's pretty much, anyone to make these proposals. So I want to see more.
Well, Marshall, as
proposals.
100 billion XRP may be a lot, it's finite though, and it's deflationary 100%. There's no inflationary aspect, so that's.
Mr.
Centralized.
Currently, it is
Mr.
inflationary because when that escrow unlocks, there's more tokens coming onto the market.
Yeah, but that's fine. Eventually,
what I'm saying is, until that's done, Mr. I, the chain is inflationary.
Mr. I.
It's also deflationary with a little bit of the burn, but that's minuscule.
Yeah, but they are not voting with their tokens. Bullish.
All right, we're all speaking over each other. I'm taking into account the full 100 billion that will come out to big institutions and partners, and then when that stops, there's a guarantee that it stops, versus in this instance, there's not a guarantee. Bullish.
Right, and all I was saying.
You're breaking up, Bullish.
Mr. I, can I jump in real quick? And
then we'll go to Ghost.
Go ahead.
Okay.
But why do I get muted? I just want to finish, and then you can.
You didn't, Bullish. Your mic's going in.
You're rugging, yeah.
You're rugging,
back to
Bullish.
Alice's
I apologize. I apologize. I just don't want to be gatekept.
So back to Alice's question about the inflation and whatnot, right? So, like Marshall was saying, it's a resource blockchain, right? So transactions, DApp transactions, right? Merchants developing DApps and the actual blockchain getting used, right? So there can be a point where it becomes so deflationary that the supply actually goes out of control in the negative, right? So you have to have a mechanism to combat that, right? And the only way that you can do that is with inflating new supply. Because as the banks, as all the merchants are using this chain, all that XPR is getting burned up, right? Not only that, it's migrating to other subnets. It's getting locked up in liquidity pools. Like there's just not enough XPR right now, right? For what's coming. So in order to combat that, there has to be an elastic supply. Okay, and that's part of the community member's job, is to monitor that and to support the core developer on managing that. Okay, so that's huge difference between delegated proof of stake and other blockchains, and it's very delicate. When you start talking about 5-10 years from now.
I also just want to add to what Alluvian just said. If the community wanted for Proton in the future to hard cap and not require it to create more coins to exist, to fund the mechanism of delegated proof of stake block production, it could just move to the A chain and wouldn't need that. So from a technology perspective, that is a possibility if that's what the community wants in the future when A chain goes live. And it's, at this point, it's pretty much complete. It's a deviation from EOS, and I believe we've made improvements with the WASM compiler. It's awesome, and it wouldn't necessarily need inflation to run. So that's actually something that it can do in the near future if people want. So it's not. I just want to point out that it doesn't. That Proton as a DAO can move and make that upgrade of that technology and say, okay, that old network like FPOW is now deprecated, not really used anymore. So it can do that.
So we have a couple hands up here. James, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. So the key takeaway here is the community and people involved need to be active, right? Because if you're passive, you don't get a say. You're operating at the whims of everybody else, right? So I think that's the message that needs to go out. And when I hear, okay, this hasn't been done yet, well, I could go around on X and I could say, when's this proposal going to go up? When's that going to happen? Instead, the PayPal stablecoin there was an update pushed out today. I went straight out and put the proposal up myself to basically mobilize the community around that. And I think we need more of that, not just in this ecosystem, but the entire space in general.
Thank you, James. I will go to, I think, what is it, Metro? You had your hands up for a while, man. Go ahead. Metro, please go ahead.
Wait, Ghost was next.
Sure. Then yeah, Ghost.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mr. I.
And Vic.
Yeah, a quick question for Marshall there. He said that he termed the coin layer 0. I just wanted to get some clarity on how that came about, because I could have sworn Gavin Wood was talking about that a year before even XPR had relabeled to be sort of marketed as layer 0. So how did that come about? You coining layer 0?
First of all, I just want to say, if there is someone that said it before me and they are the originator, I'm fine with that. I just hadn't seen that. But the terminology and kind of the buzzword out of the Web3 Foundation, that Gavin runs, was Web3, as far as I remember. And maybe there was some interview or something where he said that, but I've never seen that before. So when people started talking about layer 1, when Avalanche started to heat up, after 2020, and Cosmos and Polkadot. By the way, full disclosure, I was an early investor in Cosmos. I'm a big believer in the layer 0. That was something that everybody's talking about, layer 1, and layer 2s, right? Like Lightning and stuff like that. Everybody that was building these blockchains, and go back and look at how Polkadot was marketed. Everything says L1 everywhere. I mean, I don't remember that, but if it was, I certainly don't have an issue with it. What I can tell you for certain is that as far as I can see, I'm the first person that started talking about it. And if someone else did, that's cool. But I don't see that.
Marshall,
that's fair enough.
He's also confusing Proton
tossed around in the same circles. I understand that. I just saw, I could have remembered that even Angel Versetti, who launched Moonrabbit 2 years ago, was talking about layer 0 and even labeled it layer 0. So that caught me by surprise. But nonetheless, those things happen. My next question is just quick. Do you guys pay Twitter influencers or compensate in any way to push the XPR?
No,
I'm just curious.
No. We're probably like one of the few blockchains that doesn't too. We don't pay anyone. And I see Bullish, like people making accusations at him. Bullish does not work in Metallicus. As far as I know, there hasn't been any grant. Now Bullish could go make a grant and say, hey, I want to do a podcast and I want, a grant to do this thing. Unfortunately, only one person has done that so far, right? And he got approved. But
Bullish.
No, it
just
actually
kidding.
It's not. I can show you who it is. He's an awesome guy. His name's Andrew, and he's he basically makes a lot of cool videos. He's the co-host in the Marshall Show. If you watch it, so he got a grant for about, I think.
You have your own show, Marshall?
I just did my first
and it's
episode.
amazing. It's amazing.
We thought it would be funny. I don't know. I just want to do something different, and So yeah, I'm an influencer now, but not really. No, we don't pay. Metallicus doesn't pay any influencers, and the consortium hasn't paid any influencers. And if it did, you'd see a proposal. And I can tell you, Metallicus wouldn't be involved in anything like that because, in my opinion, that would be running afoul of securities laws, right? You look at like what happened with Tron as a perfect example. Why is Lindsay Lohan talking about the Tron wallet? Do you think she really uses the Tron wallet? You're not going to find anything like that from Metallicus, right? We pride ourselves on compliance. We've done the research. We've looked at that. And maybe that's why the market cap value is lower. I don't know, but I don't necessarily know. Right. But we just don't do it. I guess the biggest influencer in that sense is me, that I'm out there talking about it, but I'm not saying like buy or sell or do anything. If you listen to my message, it's about download the wallet, try this out, make a payment. You don't have to own any XPR to use it.
Just one second, Marshall. Mr. I, we have two folks requesting. I cannot get them up. Ellis and Neil. get them up.
Yeah, Marshall,
And Ted, I
thanks
just
for
want to
answering my
clarify
questions.
one
I just
thing
wanted
to Ghost. Ghost.
Bullish. I wasn't
One question. I
referring
just
to.
want to let you know.
Wait, Bullish.
Guys, why do I have to mute everyone? Just wait. Ghost, finish up. Be succinct so we can move on.
Yeah, I was going to finish up. I just want to thank Marshall for answering my questions. Bullish wasn't referring to you. I didn't even know that was being claimed about you. But
No,
let me just finish, man.
I want to let you know the clarification with your layer 0 statement.
Yo, Bullish, come on. You keep talking, or nobody wants to hear this. This has been a great talk. All right, Ghost, you're done. CC, then Neil.
No,
No, Ghost, we're good. Just hang in here if you have any other questions. CC.
Am I going? All right. Marshall, just on the topic of the regulations and everything. For the grant fund that you guys are doing payments in XPR. Wouldn't you consider that eyebrow raising for a certain regulator?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Doing payments in XPR?
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are making your grants and payments in XPR, in the native currency. Correct?
That's correct. But also some of the consortium recipients sometimes may receive XMD or USDC if that's the arrangement that we've worked with them. So we've kind of helped with some of the grant recipients figuring out how they're going to liquidate or if they're what they're doing with it. But one of the things that I'll say about this, and James raised it, is that there is a debate, and no one can this is fact, at the congressional level about how digital assets are regulated. So this is actively being debated. It's not like this is, and someone can say, well, it's very clear. That's absolutely not true. If you work in the space, you know that that's not true. What's happening right now in Congress is we're seeing new bills come about, like McHenry's stablecoin bill. We're seeing bills come about for how cryptocurrency can be created and so forth, especially everything having to do with fiat interaction. And I was one of the first people to draft a bill, not just sitting on my ass saying, oh, I wish we'd have more clarity and somebody else would do something about it. I worked to write a congressional bill, and you can look it up. It's called the Cryptocurrency Act 2020, and it gave different regulatory classifications and assigned primary regulators for different types of assets. I'm really happy to see that bill didn't ultimately get voted on because it was submitted right as coronavirus was happening. And there's also a lot I needed to learn about lobbying because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even know anything about writing a bill. I just got kind of pulled into this thing, and what started as like a research paper turned into a bill that we got to go to DC and actually submit it. I handed it into the representative who brought it into Congress, or the staff aide who brought it into Congress, which was really cool. I got to go underneath the little tunnel there. It was really interesting. Got that whole experience. But people should do stuff about that. They should write to their elected representatives, and this is something that's being debated right now. What's not clear is what links all of these different assets that are on the list. If you go to CoinGecko, there are some things on there like Cosmos that I can guaranteed is decentralized. I'm an early investor in it, and the co-founders hate each other. How do they work together? They don't have to, because the network coordinates itself. Now, does it fail the Howey test? Is there an expectation of gain? Well, everybody in cryptocurrency is, looking at that, looking at prices and things like that. And I don't think it's realistic to say everything but Bitcoin is not is a security, because what about Litecoin? What about Dogecoin? What about forks of Bitcoin that are essentially started the same way? That argument wouldn't make sense. So we are on the eve of regulatory clarity, and I think that anybody that says otherwise is not really being accurate. Those people that are in the XRP community were excited to see the outcome of the trial here, and maybe there's an appeal, but there's clearly a need that's probably going to go all the way to the Supreme Court to establish this. So anybody that says otherwise is not reading the news, is not actually being active or looking at this
Correct.
stuff, because that's just not the case.
But wouldn't you rather de-risk yourselves from getting a slap on the wrist by some regulatory company by the name of the SEC and just not offer the XPR payment altogether?
Well, the DAO essentially is its own platform. We don't control the DAO. The DAO smart contract is hosted on the blockchain. We have the front end. If there was a reason where we couldn't host that front end, or offer that service, then we would stop offering it. You know, and I think that that has been a problem for some. You know, you take Coinbase, for example, in staking. Are they staking as a service a security? Kraken paid the fine. Coinbase is arguing it. Maybe they win, just like XRP. I think a lot of these things are unclear. We're participants in this open network, and the way that I view it is, you know, as a participant, this is what I want to see. If it doesn't evolve that way in the US, it could even evolve in other countries and things like that. But our whole thing has been to double down on compliance and working together with our regulators, which we do, you know, and achieving licenses and so forth. And when it comes to these things, it's not like I'm just like, oh, well, we'll just wait years to see what happens with XRP. I'll go draft a bill and bring it to Congress. Who else is doing that?
It would be devastating for the industry if Ripple settled and it only applied to them. Neil,
Ripple showed up when I went to bring my bill in. The Ripple executives guys were like, we want to add stuff to it, and I was really hesitant because I was like, I just don't want to add. I want to keep this document as short and succinct as possible because I think everybody's going to argue over it, which they did. But yeah, I just want to say, like, I think it is a good win for Ripple in the digital currency space, and I hope that I've always said this, that, you know, even though I have my qualms with kind of some of the way things went down, and, you know, I worked at Stellar. Jed obviously has disagreement with some things. I'm kind of a similar camp, but I like the technology. I think that you look at MiCA in Europe, there's a whole framework for it. It's going to be hard to, you know, to get into, you know, to do it because compliance is hard. But I think the same thing is going to come to US ultimately, and it's going to be an act of Congress. If you ask me, kind of what's happening, it could go all the way to the Supreme Court, and I think it's a huge win for Ripple.
Yeah, I think they settled and it only applies to them. But Neil, go on.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. I just wanted to come up and say thank you for hosting the space. Really appreciate the civil dialogue. As I listen to Marshall and some of the others speak about Proton and Metallicus, I mean, one thing that I wondered is, I feel like the destinies of XRP and Proton, XPR, are mainly intertwined because of the overlap between the letters in the currency codes, versus, is there an actual competition? You know, I guess this is a question for Marshall. Do you view that there is some sort of competition between the XRPL and Proton Metallicus versus, you know, what I've heard you speak of, it sounds more like you guys are focusing on KYC, more retail, versus XRPL. I wouldn't say that's necessarily the focus there, but I'm curious if you view this as, you know, there's a competition here that's beyond just who is the owner of the letters X and R and P, or X and P and R, or is there something bigger going on here?
Yeah, so, you know, I think that crypto as a space is so small that there really isn't, like, sure, there are people that are competing against each other, but at this point, it's kind of like if we win, we all win together at this stage in size. When BlackRock and Fidelity and all these guys, which I predicted are going to come in, that's when we get outnumbered. And yes, right, it's like every man, you're lucky if you could survive in that climate, right? And that's what's coming. So no, I you know, and I'm happy with the outcome of the case, and what they argued. It's great. It's a move forward for the digital currency space. What we're building in the Proton community is kind of like an open public comments. I think when XRPL started, it was just a different time in crypto. And maybe they will go in the route of that DAO, but what we're building is kind of, you know, and you know that I came from Stellar, it's more on the consumer focused side where people can make payments. I want to see people using this thing. And it doesn't mean that we're not B2B and we're not working with banks. When I say we in that context, I'm talking about my company, Metallicus. We're building on top of these networks. Yes, I'm a founder. But you know, the reason we did this is because we were frustrated with other public networks not having what we needed to build our business. So we just went for it and built it. And so on the B2B side at Metallicus, you know, we're looking at Metal Blockchain as that's kind of our service offering for banks. And Metal Dollar is a way that stable coins between banks and fintechs can enter the basket. And those that know me and follow me know that my predictions have been spot on, right? And today with PayPal Dollar, boom, people were like, oh, this dollar stablecoin basket, what's the value of that? It's like to delist BUSD, to delist TUSD, to add PayPal dollar. You don't want something that's stuck behind the times and then nobody can see the transparency of what's going on. It becomes like a BUSD situation where you're all over Forbes and everybody's pointing a finger at you. And even if you wanted to get it right, it's probably too late at that point, right? Because nobody trusts you. So, you know, the vision with what we're building at Metallicus is, yeah, we want to go after both consumer and enterprise. On the consumer side, we built some apps like MetalPay, right? It's kind of like similar to Venmo. It offered crypto before Venmo and banking and payments, which is, you know, it's been a great option for people to onboard into crypto. So yeah, you know, I would say that we're different. Ripple's products have changed over the years, so they've had different things that have kind of come and gone. What I can tell you about what Metallicus is doing as a company, building on the layer 0 and layer 1 Metal blockchain. On our B2B side, we're working with banks and payment institutions, like you saw our Fiserv integration that we're building. You saw our FedNow integration. People were skeptical about that too. I'm surprised that question didn't come up. That is real. It's just when the FedNow website gets slammed with so many inquiries and people are like, you know, arguing over crypto. Yeah, it's, you know, let's just take it down until it goes live. Okay, fine. But I can confirm that is real. And working with other banks around building their own blockchains and stable coins. And there has been a lot of interest in that. Also on the KYC on chain and the identity solution, there's a surprising number of banks that want to enter into this space and to use the technology to send payments between other banks and to grow their AUM and to offer new products and services. And this is, you know, this is a great option. We've found a lot of traction and success with it. So, you know, that's what we're going after. My understanding of Ripple is they're trying to do cross-border settlement, working with central banks and with other banks. So there's definitely crossover. Our focus just tends to be more on consumer. I don't, you know, Ripple Labs is such a big company in comparison to mine. I don't really think it's like a fair, it's like, you know, am I competing with whatever multi-billion-dollar company
Marshall,
or
whatever? Do you look at it as a competition, yes or no, currently?
Well, crypto's so small, everyone's competing for a piece of the pie. But no, I don't view it as
no.
I don't view it as competition because we're going after different kind of things, right? And if I see, you know, XRP, if I see Ripple Labs launching layer 0 bank chain with DID on chain, then I'll be like, okay, it's on.
Then it's
right?
on.
But yeah, so.
All right, Observer.
Hey, yeah, thank you. I decided to open up my account just for this conversation. But I just had a question for Marshall in regard.
You're breaking up.
Observer, we do not hear you.
Wolfie, can't hear you.
Somebody rent the rug doctor?
Wow. Neil, anything else?
Can you hear me now?
Well, you're back, Observer.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, so here's my question. I just wonder.
God damn it.
Up, bro.
All right, while he figures it out, Neil, you got anything else?
How come I keep getting muted?
I'm the only one controlling it, so I'm not muting you. Vet.
I was just
No,
muted.
it's because it's your bad reception that happens.
No, I have really great reception. I have
All right, let's try it again.
Yeah. Let's see if I don't get muted again when I start to talk about the marketing practice.
I'm getting muted, bro.
Yeah. So let me just oh, I just got muted again.
Bro, it's your reception.
All right.
Trust me.
Wolf, listen, I'm gonna remove that just so no one can blame him.
Do it.
All right, Observer.
Okay.
We hear you clearly.
Yeah, you know what? It's not worth my time. Never mind.
All right. Neil, anything else?
No, I guess. Well, I guess one question would be: so I did download WebAuth Wallet, and I guess if your pitch is for retail, I would say it's unclear what somebody is expected to do once you download and use WebAuth Wallet. Like there wasn't really a call to action of, there's like so many options. Like I'm curious what you think users would do with WebAuth Wallet once they've opened an account. Like what do you expect them to do with that?
Yeah, so we're about to launch a whole new WebAuth 2.0 with a rebrand. I mentioned that a lot of the stuff that we pushed out, we kind of like pushed it out as fast as we could. This is one of those scenarios where we launched Proton Wallet when we started the chain in 2020, and then we made some technical decisions to completely rework everything into basically just move the whole code base into React. We did that. We made a faster, better experience, but there's a lot that needs to go into the UI, like you said, to kind of drive the call to action of like what we want people to do. And one of the things that has been difficult as we're getting ready to launch 2.0 and our rebrand is Apple. We had to remove the swap button just to get this thing in the App Store. And Apple has been really difficult. For those that know, if you work at a company in crypto that has an app in the App Store with Apple, it's really difficult. But we have a whole new kind of design around the front end that you're going to see soon that's going to have all of that kind of cool stuff. It's just, yeah, one of the hard things on the app side has been Apple. Google has been a breeze as usual. The vision for WebAuth is to use web authentication. So maybe not a lot of people necessarily know this, and soon you'll kind of have like the widgets to walk you through. The idea is that you add devices. So you don't have to like use the mobile app. You add your devices. You add your mobile phone, your tablet, your computer. They all have Touch ID and Face ID and a YubiKey if you want it, or a Trezor, Ledger, any FIDO device. And you can use that to sign your transactions in your browser in Safari and Chrome without opening any wallet. And then if you lose the device or sell it, or you want to remove it for security or whatever, you just delete it. So the idea behind WebAuth is that all the chains, including when we go to add like Bitcoin and Ethereum, that we'll be building web authentication integrations for those chains. And if we can't, like we can't get a BIP approved through the Bitcoin improvement proposal, for example, then we'll just put it on VeChain, right? We'll just put it on our own chain. And in most cases, that's where we're going to implement it first. It makes it easier, it allows us to kind of have fun with it and build it out. But yeah, what we want people to do is go to Proton Dex, add your device. So you download the wallet, add your device. And not all this, you're right, not all this stuff is in the UI yet. It needs to improve. That's going to happen. But you add your device, go to one of the Proton dApps like Proton Dex or protonloan.com, and then you can trade, and then you can borrow, and you can loan. The wallet on the web and in mobile allows you to send payments too. And it is the only, completely feeless microtransaction platform. I saw a TikTok recently where someone discovered our streaming payments and was blown away that they could, stream a salary or a payment, by the second, by the Satoshi, or by the, micro tenths of a penny or something like that. And it's free. It's not like Lightning where people say, oh, well, it's super fast. It's Bitcoin Lightning, but there's still fees. And even if they're infinitesimal, it does still kind of matter for user adoption. So I think you're going to really like our new brand. It's definitely in the line with all the cool kind of design elements you've seen with like X, and with Threads is not that popular, but you'll kind of see, it's hip, it's cool. And we're adding kind of the UI integrations to drive people through that. So it's like, all right, step one, add your devices. Step two, head over to the DEX.
Then the metal dollar too, they can go to, Marshall.
Exactly. Mint metal dollar, redeem metal dollar. And XMD will have other capabilities in the future, like its own subchain on Metal blockchain where you can pay for gas fees in pennies or dollars. It's more predictable.
I just had a quick question about just some of the references, because I know you said like you guys are producing things. You've said a few times like we. When you say we, do you mean like you and your team specifically? Do you mean the entire network? I just for myself, I was just wondering when you referenced that.
Most of the stuff that I was just talking about when I was saying we was what Metallicus, the core developer, is doing. But I was mentioning we. Sorry, I kind of used that interchangeably. We, the community, is well, because there's a lot of stuff like the governance proposals, for example. If I was saying we, then I meant people. Sorry, I just kind of am talking fast and not saying, Metallicus, but yeah, when I was just saying we just now, I was referring to my company, but
That's right. Bill Hinman said we, and he was clearly referring to him in the SEC, unlike you. Billy Boyle, Hinman, going to need a lawyer up.
Mr. I, you're wild, man. I love it.
All right, Marshall's been here quite a while. Anybody else have a couple questions left, and we'll call it a night.
I just want to say, I guess if there's no more questions, or just since it's quiet, I think that both of these communities can coexist. There's definitely been, I think it's probably because of the tickers being closed, people being like, oh, it's Red Sox versus Yankees or whatever, or some sort of fight. But there was an influencer in XRP that said or someone said, can he get an apology? And I was like, I don't know if I slighted this guy or whatever, but then I said, okay, sure, because I don't really have any issues with this person. And then,
Marshall, to be fair, it's not you. It's some people in your community. Feel free to attack the XRP community, but you hit us, we hit back harder. That's pretty much how it goes.
I'm glad. What I was getting at was I'm glad to see people coming together. It's nice to have this space, and I'm glad maybe something came out of it, or other people were like, hey, yeah, let's just talk about crypto and what these two communities are building. I think it's interesting. The last thing I just wanted to say was, you guys got to download it and try it. If you can't really make a judgment about something until you actually use it. So,
And I've heard a lot of good things about the UI today, so that's exciting. Last question, Max, and then we'll close it up.
Hi, Marshall. I just popped in. I don't know anything about the blockchain, your blockchain or your company, or how the foundation is separated from the developers. Can I ask several questions that are meta-technical? Over.
Go for it, Max. Over.
So how many developers do you have?
So at Metallicus, we have about 30 developers internally as a core dev, and then we have another 20 or so developers on contract that are essentially contracts. So about 50 people. And then we have some real rock stars internally. Some of them I would really say, a handful of them, it's like each one of them is worth 10 people, right? So, but I guess you have to kind of see us execute and put stuff out. So if you follow us, you'll see how fast we're putting out applications, how quick we're updating stuff. Then we also have a bunch in the community that are doing stuff for the core development of Proton. They're not the core developer, right? Block producers. Shout out to EOS Amsterdam, who does history nodes and things like that. Shout out to Proton New Zealand. Shout out, so many Kiwi. I don't want to not miss someone. We've got one in the community who's really focused on privacy and security. He's just launched Proton VPN. So there's a lot of people in the community that are building outside of the core team, and also building on the core of the chain. Sorry, Alvosec, and Total Proton, Bounty Block, who's built social media integrations and things like that. Shout out to Rocker One, who just launched who just got a bounty for building the WordPress plugin for Proton. There's lots of community open source development. We're the core developer, and we're out there kicking ass, but there's so many that are kicking ass, working on the chain and auxiliary as well.
So you would say that these developers are credentialed developers?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the BPs, it's not easy to become a block producer. If you do the research and see what it takes just to run the infrastructure of the DPoS for a BP, it's pretty technical. And those that are developers around it tend to be some pretty heavy hitters. And we've had people come into our community. I've just mentioned Rocker One and the WordPress plugin, but that was awesome, right?
Who did the WordPress plugin?
I don't know if he was listening. Rocker One, you can find him on Twitter.
Okay, cool.
I've been retweeting his stuff.
Yeah,
but,
see, I know
It's
I
pretty
know
cool.
nothing about your company or your project, etc., but the integration with WordPress is a killer idea.
Well, yeah, because Proton doesn't have any gas fees. So now you could, the idea like merchant processing, right? You're paying like 2% plus or 3%. And if that's going all the way down, let's say someone's charging their retail customers who's then making wholesale purchases, but using a corporate Visa or something like that, right? It all trickles down and it costs a lot. And that's one of the cool things about blockchain, also about XPR, is that if you're using like the WordPress plugin, you could do micropayments. Like Paul demonstrated, he did a sticker for 10 cents just to prove the point that like normally in crypto that probably wouldn't be possible, right? On something like XRP it would, right? Or XLM, but still just the idea that you could tell somebody who's non-crypto savvy, who wants, their own custodial account and experience to just sign up and send some USDC or some stable coin, and they don't have to have ETH or any sort of thing to do anything extra. It's pretty cool. I don't know if they've actually linked it publicly yet. So sorry, I don't know if you can try it yet, but I've been using it.
So if I
And Marshall, also you don't have to have any assets to open the wallet, isn't that correct?
Exactly. So you don't need like I know they lowered back in the day when I was more deep into XRP, it was like 50 XRP to open an account. You don't have to show up with any assets. And part of the reason that works, there are fees on Proton blockchain in the form of RAM and net and CPU. But like XRP and XLM, it's really low, right? Opening the account, and then that's granted out, because if you allowed anybody to do it, then they would just spam the network, right? And that's why sometimes people get upset when they go to use their wallet and they're like, why did it ask for my email? So don't spam the network. We're not using your email to log in, and don't think that you can recover your password to that email. It's just an anti-spam technique.
A related question to the developers, because I know about companies. I've had my own development company. How do you fund 50 developers, for example? What kind of investment do you have?
So we've received private funding, and we also have tokens and coins, right? So we have raised several rounds throughout the history. When we started Metallicus in 2016 with our seed, and then our last round was our Series A, and we've really have not brought a lot of VCs in. We avoided that because we just felt that, and I think we were right, that a lot of the crypto VC was like all about just getting all these coins and just selling them as fast as possible. So we kind of tried to steer away from that, really work with I think if you look at what we've built on the dollar amount that we've done it on, it's like crazy. I've seen teams waste so much money and not produce anything. But yeah, we're venture funded. We also have coins and tokens, and we also have revenues. I'll tell you, Metallicus is not essentially revenue positive yet, but between all of our trading products and things like that, we're about like a 10x away from that in our volume. So we'll see. Also, one of the things that we're planning on doing as we expand out the WebAuth wallet is also to get some grants. So as we go for other foundations like Cosmos or something like that, we're excited to apply as a new wallet entrant with web authentication.
Now, because I wasn't here in the beginning, you're not an ERC20 derivative, are you?
No. People get confused about that all the time, where they go onto Etherscan and they find the bridged XPR token and they go, "What's up with these wallets? Oh my God!" That's just a bridged asset. So you're looking at the bridge. Proton. If we're talking about Proton XPR, it's its own blockchain. You can see that at protonscan.io. We talked about this earlier in the very beginning. And you can also, I think there's another block to explore, EOS Authority. I forgot which one. I use Proton Scan exclusively. But you can
also fork off Avalanche, no? Or
sorry?
is that something else?
That's Metal. That's Metal blockchain. So
sorry.
Proton is a fork of EOS, of Antelope, Leap, and Metal is a fork of Avalanche. And what we're doing here is merging them into one thing, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at the GitHub very quickly. The code looks real. I'm rather impressed with what I've seen and heard so far. But I'm a bit disappointed because I thought that the Rocker One guy, is it only one guy? Is it more than one guy?
Oh, that's just one guy, as far as I know, that applied to do a bounty grant. I was just giving him as one example of the most recent bounty that was accomplished that I think is
Well,
pretty
who
cool.
developed the WordPress plugin? Oh, okay, well, that's very cool. I mean, that should be a significant part of your business pitch to VCs, right?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what we're building with Metallicus, right, is our motto is building the world's most customer-centric digital asset banking network. Kind of a mouthful, but the vision is to build the blockchain technology that connects banks to consumer and enterprise applications, and we want to be that tech stack. And then simultaneously, Arena Birkin and I, our CFO, formed FBBT Holdings, and we're looking to start a bank here in the United States as well. And that's actually not just an idea, because sometimes, like I know some other crypto founders like, I'm starting a bank. It's not that easy. We're actually approaching the final stages of actually acquiring a bank. So yeah, that's the vision. And someday we want that software to be integrated in all the top banks. We're really excited to connect and work with Fiserv and FedNow and we haven't disclosed all the partners, but you can see, I think people were surprised, like, no way, this tiny company landed this huge partner. People were like downright upset.
Which partnership did you land?
So these two pieces are not partnerships. They're agreements to connect into the platform. That's kind of the beginning of how you get to
Is that a big deal? Doesn't sound like a big deal.
It is, because you can't just show up and just say, okay, I want to connect into this platform and it's open and anybody can do it. You have to apply.
Okay. There's a license you sign?
It's not a license, but it's an agreement, and like basically kind of like an operating manual. You work together with these, the examples that I'm giving, working together with them to integrate it to operate. But it's not like anybody can just show up and say, hey, give me a key, like it's like Stripe where anybody gets a key.
And
it's a long
which two examples did you cite?
I was mentioning, so recently we announced the integration with Metal Blockchain to connect into Fiserv, and then the other announcement, which people were debating if it was real or not, was Metal Blockchain connecting into FedNow as well.
So you're using Metal Block as an SDK into these other services.
Yeah, so I don't want to, I've gotten in trouble in the past where I like go off the script of like what I can and can't say. So what I'll say is you got to look at the press release and
that's
read
fair.
through that and see. But yeah, because I don't want to like go outside of the script of like whatever. Of course, there's stuff that I know that I should not be saying or whatever, especially stuff that hasn't been come out yet. But those are two examples of like how we're working together, and maybe some differentiation from, for example, like Avalanche ecosystem, right? That's initially was focused more on gaming. We've been focusing on banking, and historically the not as sexy part, but you look at what's going on right now in stable coins and USDT and PayPal, and it makes a lot of sense.
I think you said Metal Block. Is that correct?
Metal Blockchain.
Metal Blockchain. Oh, why two blockchains?
Yeah, so there's a layer. This is what we were talking about earlier. There's a layer 1 and there's a layer 0. The layer 1 is completely open, and anybody can connect to that. And technically, the layer 0 is open as well. But layer 0 is to launch blockchains. So you can, like for example, a client of ours could launch their own bank blockchain, where the unit of accounting is USD in their accounts. And that could be a private ledger or a public ledger or hybrid. And at the same time, Proton is an open network. We kind of call it like the town hall or the commons or decentralized Fed, if you will. It's a DAO that can interact with all these chains.
I see.
Where they can meet.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I don't have enough knowledge yet to ask more questions, but thank you. So your title is?
I'm the CEO and founder.
Okay, and you've done this all in what, 2 years?
We started the company in 2016, so it's been 7 years now.
If only Flair could have accomplished this much. And you've communicated very, very openly. Thank you. Unlike Hugo Fillion, if he's listening. Thank you.
Marshall, you've passed the official max entropy GitHub repository code smell test. Let him dig further, and we'll see what he comes up with. But
please, yes.
I think we gave it a run. I know Alice came back up, but maybe we've had a long day. Marshall,
I got to run as well,
yeah,
guys.
Let's go.
But yeah, I just want to thank all you guys for great questions, and I'll tell you that I am a believer in the vision that was started with XRPL and XLM. I worked at Stellar, and I was you'll see the Ripple account follows me. I've been in the space for a long time, and I had an early Ripple XRP account, and I think at the end of the day, what really matters is the crypto community staying tight, staying together, and not all this infighting, because the big banks are really coming to eat the other blockchains lunch. And I just want to say, download the software, educate people, and thanks again for having me on here. Cheers.
Marshall, pleasure. Best of luck. And listen, you guys come at us first, we'll hit back harder, but no hits.
I hope
it's
this
all peace.
I hope this space is kind of like the unification, where
That's
all
what
of a sudden
Marshall.
everybody. Yeah, it's great. Thanks for hosting it, Mr. I. Appreciate it. Thanks everyone
all right,
for listening.
Everybody.
Later, Marshall.
You guys heard it. Proton boys at their finest. You make your decision. You download that app. You check out that UI. Mr. I out. Troomers only. XPR, not to be confused with XRP. Gary.